I think they might have one time.
Hey
Oh,
guys,
hi there.
this is Jaden and Zane coming at you from Team Shadow Strike, and this is going to be a new to clan discussion video. You guys have been really enjoying them, and I appreciate that. And I've been hounded for more, but the problem was, guys, is I've been doing all the clans that were announced in season 1, and then I'm going to go forward.
Right.
And I'm down to a very small handful, and the 2 that I was going to do next, I was going to have guest appearances. Obviously, you recognize this guy from Deck Profiles.
You might know.
And from the Jaden and Zane segment that we do, or try to do as often as we possibly can.
I'm Jaden.
And I'm Zane. But he today is going to be joining me in the Granblue clan discussion. So today we're going to be talking, and Granblue, it was, I think, like the 6th clan that was shown in the show. Because
yeah,
you had
like...
Kagura, Royal Paladin, Nova Grappler, Oracle Think Tank. And side note, I am not counting Mega Colony or Bermuda Triangle in Season 1 since the deck was mixed. It was not a deck.
Yeah.
That they'll be in my Season 2s. But anywho, Zane, in a nutshell, if someone came up to you and said, "Tell me, what is Granblue?"
Granblue is a mixture of zombie and vampire pirates. It's basically the undead that are rising back from the seas, ready to fight again. And essentially, the deck plays like, I hear Light Swarms are kind of similar to it. It's basically...
Yu-Gi-Oh reference.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah. If they are in the drop zone, you most likely have a chance of bringing it back. Back in the day... around set 6, they had more toolboxy stuff that they could have done this much easier with. But the main mechanic they had back in the first season, which was they got more of their stuff in set 2, like that's when they became a playable deck. Because like most things in set 1, they gave them like 4 cards. They gave them a 0, 1, 2, and 3, and then that's all they did, which was really unfortunate for Great Nature because they only got their stuff in set 7 after that kind of stuff. And kind of the same goes for Bermuda in set 2 because they only got like 4 cards and that was it.
And Mega Colony as well was set 4.
But just rarely they ever got a chance to do anything. But yeah, for the basic mechanic of Granblue is bringing back stuff from the grave. Back in the day, we had cards like what's his name? The Mega Blaster. Barbados is, I think, his name.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, Basskirk.
Basskirk, thank you.
Okay. We had Basskirk, who was our Mega Blaster, which, if you do your Mega Blast, which is, of course, Counter Blast 5 and Soul Blast 8, bring back, I think, as many guys as you want from your grave. If it wasn't as many guys as you want, basically 5, yeah, it was 3 otherwise.
It was revive up to 5 units out of the drop zone.
There you go. Yeah, so you could get a full field back if you wanted to. They also had a notable card like Monster Frank. If he's in your drop zone, you can, in your grade 2 or grade 3, you can counterblast 3 and ride him from your graveyard and stuff. Now, it's an act ability, so yeah. Most of the Granblue abilities come from acts and stuff. They're dead already. Nowadays, they've been improved. They have a little bit more of a auto effect kind of stuff, but it's through break ride means essentially, and also the reverse unit, which is still an act ability. But back then they weren't seen as much. In the show, you noticed what's his name, Goki?
Yep, and Team Handsome.
Yeah. You got to be a handsome man to play Granblue, which I think his team was 2 Granblue, and then it was supposed to be Kamui and stuff, who was Nova Grappler back then and stuff. It still is.
Obviously.
Yeah. But Granblue is a effective deck because back in the day, one thing that really pushed them a lot, and it only happened in set 6 because, again, they had 4 cards in set 1, they had the rest of their support in set 2 to at least make them playable, and then they got revived set 6, revived from the grave, and then for the only other stuff they ever got was set 13. That tells you how the generation gap has been. It's not a popular clan, I will admit, because it's, again, they didn't get much
support has been spaced.
Yeah. Very, very much so. And
this deck before the turn of Season 3 was cheap to build.
Yeah.
Guys, Perfect Guard playsets are $100.
Now they are, because set 2 is the only where you can get them, and they are not being reprinted because it's set 2. Now, they might do it in the future, but there's doubt of that because of the mixed clan perfect guard thing. You can do.
Yeah.
Because they would be just nearly impossible.
Yeah.
On that note of Sentinels and stuff, though, the only deck I would ever recommend personally, this is just my opinion, Quintet Wall would be Granblue. Even if you don't use the Legion, it would still be an effective thing because it gets up to your drop zone. But personally, I'm not a fan of reckless milling, which I would call just milling top cards of your deck and seeing if you get lucky. I like selective mill, usually through Tabby the Ghosty, Equivalent of the Guard Circle, send them to the graveyard. Back then, a lot of their powers came from either bringing stuff back from the grave or milling cards to get power. Like, main example of bringing back stuff to do stuff would be the ship. They have a ship grade 2. That's the Ghost Ship. That's an 11K. It was the same thing as Brutal Jack and everything like that, except the only way it worked was you had to bring back something from the grave before you can attack with it. But if it was boosted, it'd get an extra 5K on top of it, which was pretty handy.
Samurai Spirit was another one.
Samurai Spirit was pretty good. It's a grade 1. It's a 7K. If it's in your drop zone, you can counterblast 1, retire any unit on your field, and put them on the field. Now, you can replace the same unit where it was and stuff, or you can put it somewhere else on the field if it's handy for you. Captain Night Mist was definitely a popular choice back then. He was a double rare. That same thing, except he's an 8K grade 2, and counterblast. You have to retire at least a grade 1 though, but you can retire higher, and then he gets to the field. He had an added ability though. If he was the Vanguard and you had more copies of him in the drop zone, he got more power for each copy you had.
Yeah, he gained +3 for every copy in the drop.
Absolutely.
Now, I've heard Granblue they've been described as you have Angel Feather that can use the damage zone as a second extension of the hand. So would you say that applies to Granblue in the drop zone?
Absolutely. Some decks have their own specialities and stuff. Well, yeah, Angel Feather, they deal with damage zone. You have Dark Regulars and Genesis, they deal with their soul primarily. You have your Granblue, which handle their drop zone and stuff. And you have Nubatama, which deal with making your opponent's hand just as tiny as possible.
Yeah.
Huh?
And binding their shit.
Back then, it was just get rid of cards. Just get rid of your old crap.
Yeah, considering for the longest time, Nubatama had 4 cards.
Yeah, it was that problem where they just introduced the clan. They didn't pursue it until later on, which, again, is the issue now. Right, because back then, your hand was vital. It already was. It still is now. But it was more vital back then when they barely had perfect guards. There were only like a few that even existed.
Yeah, I mean, people were buying boxes and not pulling any.
Right. Not to mention, Granblue's perfect guard looks pretty amazing, I gotta say. And it had back in the day before, I think it was before set 8 when they had the new shiny perfect guards that have the gold trim.
Yes. No, wait, that was 9. Set 9.
9. Okay. Yeah, 9. Back then, they were the original glittery, double rare. They looked fantastic.
Yeah, that's why I like playing Bari.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is Granblue's best asset? Like, what do you think is their best thing that they have going for them?
One of the best things they have going for them is that they have the ability to run 12 crit and happily keep it. Because draw is not something you want in a deck that will recklessly mill, because your deck will be gone in no time flat, especially if you play the new unit that we got in set 13, Cocytus Reverse, Ice Prison Hades Emperor Cocytus Reverse. He mills top 3 cards of your deck just using his ability alone. If you add draw triggers to that at any point, there's an issue. That deck decks out on its own with the 12 crit that I run. But if you add any draw triggers, there's a problem.
There's the top of Aaron's head.
Yeah.
And
on top of that, most people do run Evil Shade.
Yeah.
So that's a total of 6 cards they're milling at one turn.
Yeah.
Now,
and they don't have a way of getting it back, mind you. When something goes to the grave, it stays there for good or it goes to the field. It never goes back to the deck. You have to live with that.
Now there was
Or
a
not.
lot. Now the group of Granblue players that I do know, and some that I talked to on Twitter and things like this, guys, they were extremely happy that Granblue got a Legion. Now I know your feelings on the Legion for Granblue. You're not a fan of it, correct?
I'm not.
But what they were happy about it is now Granblue has a way to correct wrongful milling.
Indeed.
Because guys, could you see yourself still playing the Legion just to get that skill?
I mean, yeah. I mean, and also if the fights, when it comes Season 4, if it gets too tough to live without the Legion, I'm fine with that, but...
Talking about Canaan?
Yeah.
We are.
Granblue,
But
okay.
Yeah.
but I mean, so you can
But-
see yourself playing it for correction.
Right, yeah, because again, the deck thins out way too quick because it just goes brrr, and then you're left with not much. I mean, if your opponent can guard you out each turn, then you're screwed because you don't have much going on besides your crits and your frontal. Yeah, you just have your deck, your discard pile rising up too high.
Now, do you think you have been one thing I know that you've told me that you didn't necessarily like is they never got a true 12k attacker.
They never did.
They got the undead dragon thingy.
Yeah.
But he had to be brought out of the grave.
Yeah, Corrupt Dragon. Yeah, his only ability kicked off if he was brought back from the grave. Granblue would be a little bit powerful if they did have a permanent 12k attacker. I agree with that.
Like a Spark Rain or
yeah,
something.
like a Spark Rain or something.
Or
I
a
mean,
Radon or a Fallon.
yeah, or a Bedivere. I mean, it's just... It would be very painful, especially if people did run the 12 crit, which is usually what people do. But don't get me wrong, they have good units other than that. They have...
All right.
The draw triggers don't do anything, but the
new stand.
The stand does. There's an old one that was really good. It was Hades Steersman. Yeah. And what he did is, if you read a grade 3, you could bring him back on the same column as where your Vanguard was and stuff. So you would have something that you could retire each turn to fuel your other things like Samurai Spirit or Deadly Spirit or Deadly Nightmare or anything like that. Also, another note, best assets, the deck has also a few superior rides in different forms, well, 2 at least. It has a toolbox, pretty much, which is what I would declare as, alright, I have 1 card in my hand. Can I make this 1 card do something amazing? If you have enough resources, yes, you can. If you have your soul or you have your counterblast and you have the right cards in your drop zone, your grade 0 could easily become a 13k attacking grade 3 dragon if you want to, which I love that thing to death. But it always had that ability. Dragon Undead Dragon, I think it was something weird like that. It was an old promo and stuff back in the day. If it was on the rear guard, it would get into 3k when it attacks. Doesn't matter what it attacked, but it dies at the end of the turn. However, if you counterblast, you can retire a grade 2 or higher. It gets to the field. So you have 3 things right there that counterblast, you can do it. The other ones are Soul Blast 2. Back then, Granblue didn't need a soul too much. Nowadays, it's preferred to have a soul because you have Sea Strolling Banshee, who, if she's brought back from the graveyard, Soul Blast, you draw a card.
Easily a staple in Granblue.
Absolutely, especially with the new break ride that we have. Lord of the Seven Seas Night Mist. When you break ride, bring back 2 guys to the field for the turn. Just for the turn, but they get 5k. If you bring back 2 Banshees, guess what? You Soul Blast 2. Hey, I got 2 cards.
See, I was kind of hoping when we didn't know the reverse unit for Granblue, I was hoping it was a cross ride of Night Mist.
Oh, yeah.
Now, another thing that a lot of Granblue players I know, and especially you, explain what Fighters Collection 2014 Night Snow brings to Granblue. How does this, what does this give Granblue? Does this give them finally that new ultimate boss monster they've been craving?
This is the avatar that we have been desiring for many a moon. I mean, we've had decent things again. I mentioned before Basskirk. He was alright. We've had Spirit Exceed, which was, and we've had Cocytus, who was the main grade 3 forever for seasons 2 and set 6, obviously. Which again, that deck did not play out any farther than season 2 because once 11k grade 3s became a main thing, the deck was kind of done because it was a vanilla limit breaker, meaning when it ride it or whatever, it does something, and then it's limit breaker, it's get 5k. So that's not enough to sustain other 11k bodies or cross rides even. Now that we have 11k bodies, whether they're good or not, they can manage, but Night Snow in particular has both a good ability that's reusable. It's got power up the wazoo. It looks amazing. That 11K base is finally there. We needed that.
For argument's sake, can you explain what Night Snow does in a nutshell in case someone does not know?
I can't remember exactly how it works, but I think it's...
To my understanding, if he's in the drop zone and you are at 4 more damage...
You can Superior Ride.
You can Superior Ride.
Which is handy with...
You can Superior Break Ride.
Yeah, you can Superior Break Ride, which some decks can do. Not many. Like, even Eradicators can with Sweet Command.
Yeah.
He can do it. But... Yeah, it's a Superior Ride, which is definitely needed as well. So you don't have to run Monster Frank anymore, or Child Frank if you really feel like running him. But he doesn't do much. He's just cute. But his other ability basically goes along the lines of you can retire units to bring back units from the grave, and I think they get a power bonus too. It's basically just recycling your field and stuff constantly, and it does what the toolbox would have did, but better.
Now,
any unit.
Another thing, what do you want to see Granblue get more of in the future? Do you want to see them become? Do you want to see them get more balanced? Do you want? I mean, what is like if I'm currently for my August monthly giveaway. If you haven't gone to check it out, please do so. But I'm asking the question for you guys to answer for me: is if you were the head honcho and you were the controller of Vanguard, what is the one thing that you would change? What is the first thing you would do? So I mean, I'll kind of function that question. If you could give Granblue anything, what would it be?
I would not say a subclan, because while a lot of clans do very well with subclans, Granblue is one that's lived without it and do just fine without it. I don't like restrictions like that too, because afterwards there's like, whenever they release a set that has a subclan in it, there's really just about 2 ways in that set alone to even play the deck, else it's just not good or single rare, you know?
Do you think all of these subclans hurt the game in a way?
They make them more focused on it, I'll say that for sure. And usually they only give the really good abilities to those of a subclan. Even Grand Scissors Ezel, even he's kind of a subclan because you have a lot of support that goes towards him.
He's become a subclan.
Yeah, he himself. And, you know, obviously you have the 12K attacker and the 10K attacker, and you have the grade 2 Elia Wood.
And the new self-damager.
And the self-damager, yeah.
That also soul charges, which is stupid.
Yeah, which his ability kicks off of that and stuff. Now, yeah, so that's my example for, like, the new set that came out, set 14, because you could either be Zenith, which is your Liberator choice, or you could have been Ezel, which was your vanilla gold paladin kind of thing and stuff, but even then, it's still a subclan. Granblue, they don't need a subclan. I mean, we have a 12K attacker, technically. But if I were to give a few things to Granblue, it would be more ability to give units on the field, like even the vanilla booster, Dandy Guy Mario, give units a sub ability, like when this placed on unit's placed on rear guard, give something to another rear guard, like if this were to enter the drop zone, or something like in the graveyard.
Customers will be closing in 20 minutes. Please start cleaning up your stuff and picking up your trash.
Or give something to a rear guard, like a drop zone unit. It's like, this has the ability to, if you counterblast, bring it back to... Something that gives it more of a toolbox feel, because sometimes, if you want to run 7Ks, you should run 7Ks. Sea Strolling Banshee, really good grade 1, really makes the deck playable again. It's a grade 1 that's a 6K. That doesn't cause much of an issue when you break ride, but it's still an issue later game, especially when you
can't hit the magic number of 18 and 21s.
You want to hit cross rides better, and especially if you run Dandy Guy Mario and you do run the cross ride, 21 columns are always wanted.
Yeah, 21 is the magic number of Vanguard.
But units that, when you place them on rear guard, they do something. I would want that.
I know this one might seem a little bit longer, guys, but that's because Granblue is a much more complex clan because it is no longer. It's easy to say that Granblue is not one of the more popular clans, and it's nice to see. I mean, my friend Zane here, ever since I very first met him, he was. I've known him, but when I very first started to become really close friends with him, like I am today, he played the unpopular clans.
Yeah.
And
my first deck was Bermuda.
That was cool, you know. I mean, it's always nice to see someone go after the underdogs, and he took Granblue, and he would play people, and they would underestimate the deck. And guys, one thing I want to ask you real quick, because it's been both of the deck profiles you've done for my channel on your Granblue decks. Actually, I think you've done 3, but beside the point,
Yeah.
on the one thing all 3 of them had in common is you play 4 Chappie the Ghosty.
Right.
Now, can you explain to everyone why that works for you?
Right. I will explain this. So, I've said it many a time. The deck has, in total, 20 grade zeros in the deck. Nowadays, that is unheard of. You do not want to do such a thing. Granblue is the only deck that gets away with it, and for good reason. I started running them back in the day because, again, like I said, I love selective mill. When he's put on the guard circle, send any card from your graveyard, your deck, into the drop zone. That's handy for many reasons. 1, get your stuff that you need to get out of there to come back out. 2, if you wanted to tech Monster Frank, he can be in your drop zone just in case you didn't get grade locked, or you get grade locked and stuff. There was also the Ride Chain, which Kakaitis was a part of. All of his abilities, all their abilities kicked off by having the other copy of it in the drop zone.
And Swordmaster.
There was a lot of them that depended on the drop zone. Chappie does that for you. Not to mention a 10k shield that stops your opponent most of the time. When you don't have draw, this thing protects you. Because without those draw triggers, you usually don't have that big of a hand. Every card in your hand that has a good shield is an asset to definitely invest in. It's a way of setting up your deck, and it's a way of protecting you while you're kind of in your vulnerable state. And also, if you need to bring it back, it's 5k. Your deck can run, or at least how I do, 11, 11, 7 for my grade 1, grade 2, and then my grade 3s. In that order. And people say, oh, you're going to get grade locked more often and stuff. No, I'm not. Because the times I have been grade locked, it was not because I had Chappie in my hand. Whatever Chappie would have been that unit and stuff, like a grade 1 or a grade 2.
It's a wild card.
It's a wild card. And if I haven't seen it in my opening hands that caused me to get grade locked, that's not a problem. I might get lucky on it, but so what?
One thing I also like that you mentioned once in one of your deck profiles is when you do mill, you are at times you're going to mill your perfect guards, your triggers, and Chappie prevents that.
Yeah, exactly.
He keeps the cards in the deck that you want in the deck, your triggers, your perfects, your key units.
Right, so if you don't do reckless milling, what you're doing is you're attacking each turn. Any trigger that you see is going to be either damage or drive check, and you're dropping other cards that are not your triggers, so you are thinning your deck down to be a powerhouse explosion, a keg of black powder, essentially.
In a way, you're kind of doing what Tsukiyomi does. Instead of creating a stack, you're just removing everything else.
Right. I'm getting rid of the nasties that I can now use again.
And honestly, now when I play your Granblue deck, every time you guard the Chappie, the first thing you dump is Sea Strolling Banshee.
Right.
Because one thing I know you told me once is that you cannot play draw triggers in this deck. Now,
you cannot.
The reason is if when you explained it to me, he said you told me if you're milling and drawing at the same time, you are basically cutting your deck almost by, I think you told me like 10 cards a turn with your draw, your drive checks. This is average, keep in mind, when you're driving. Even
if you bring back 1 unit per turn, that's still milling 3 cards off the deck. You have your drive checks, which are at least 2, so you're down to 5. Then if you get both draw triggers,
you're taking 4 more cards out of the deck.
Look at that.
And it's happened to all of us who play draw triggers in decks. When you hit a draw trigger, what do you draw? You draw another trigger or you draw another draw trigger.
And that's inconvenient.
Yes.
If every trigger is a dangerous trigger, like the 12 crits, then it's good. And the heals are really essential to the deck. You could run something else. I don't know what you would run. It's up to personal player preference. But your heals are very essential to the deck too, because like Angel Feather, they deal with their damage zone. You never think about that, but what are you removing to your drop zone? Units. You're dropping units that can be brought back.
And then gain abilities when they do so.
Right. So if you counterblast your good units, you heal them off. What, Landon?
I just want to point this out. I was talking to Zane, I think it was 2 days ago, about what happened if you got the Limit Eraser that Granblue get, Nightshade, or Runeshade, whatever it's called now, Brutal Shade. And you combine Night Mist, the Break Ride, and the Night Snow. Is that the new one's name?
Night Snow, yeah.
Yeah.
You can turn 1 card to 7. Just like that. Like, no time at all.
Well, I guess if you hit the right chain, but...
No, as long as you have the limit racer on the field, 1 damage, and you have the superior ride.
You're talking about Night Snow, right?
Yes, Night Snow
Okay.
with the brake ride on the Vanguard. It's the limit racer. That way you can do it at any point in the game.
I guess I can
It
see that.
pluses too hard just from technically 2 cards.
And then the last thing I always like to talk about in these clan discussion videos, or at least I try to. I mean, we've just sat here and we've told you, we've said everything that's good about Granblue.
Right.
Now let's bring it down a little bit. What is the weakness? What is bad about this clan?
To protect themselves, now that they have no draw triggers, they can't draw into their perfect guards as easily. That means
You need to know that.
your hand is not as good as it is.
I'm
Back
talking about
in,
deep, please.
I remember definitely
Cody pointed out.
really well when I was playing in the Season 2 tournaments and stuff. The one thing I remember the most is I had no hand. I was top decking to save my life, using whatever unit I got from my hand to turn into something different. And if I lived, that was good. If I didn't,
I will say, because I know you tried draw triggers at one point, but the problem that you were having when you were playing Granblue back then and using the draw triggers is you were using them when the end, Majesty, was the thing.
I actually wasn't ever using draw triggers.
Oh, really? You never tried it? I saw you try it once, but
The only thing I've ever changed about my deck for trigger lineup was I changed one of the crits into one of the Hades Steersmen.
okay.
But I changed that pretty quickly because I never worked,
Well,
and I
it's
always had
because
a unit behind my Vanguard.
You build your deck to control the speed, and
Right.
what happens is when you do that, you get to you can set your board up arguably sometimes better than most other clans can.
Right. And
So
And one thing about Vanguard that I've always liked is you can't really mess with your opponent's field too much. Now, that's changed, obviously, now. But I like dealing with what I'm doing. Leave me be. I got my field. You got your field. Deal with it.
Yeah.
So Granblue handled that quite well because, your opponent could be filling their thumbs or sticking them up in any orifice they feel like. They can just, while you fill your field with whatever you want to do and plan out your moves. It's a captain deck because it's a captain strategy. You need to think about what you're doing.
So, in closing, is there any other things that you would like to mention about the Granblue clan? Anything at all?
They're pretty fun. They're not for everybody, I'll admit. Back in the day, they were much harder to play because, like I said, toolbox. You had to think about what you're doing and plan it out, else you are pretty much in a corner. But nowadays, they've given you much more of a breather with Kakai's Reverse because you're just bringing back anybody you feel like. And also, fun tip, if you use Break Ride, you can just lock the unit that you just brought back to the grave, and it'll stay on the field. So it's kind of like getting 2 units back for 1. Essentially. But I most of the time I wouldn't do it anyway because, usually that'd be like the Banshee.
Yeah.
And I'd still want her in the drop zone regardless.
Yeah.
And if anything, I'd want to keep my front row.
To be able to keep reviving her and drawing that card off her.
Yeah.
But anyway, guys, you know how these clan discussions work. I will continue to do them as long as I get 10 thumbs up. I was going to do another one in this filming session, but our podcast thing ran a little bit long. This one was going to be longer, guys, because Granblue is a much more difficult clan to learn how to play because it is unpopular.
Right.
I'm going to, you see Christian back here in the middle, I'm going to be doing Dimensional Police discussion with him on Monday, so it'll be done Monday, because I'm going to be filming matches for you guys on Monday when I'm here.
I'll help with that if you want.
I'm going to be posting this with the other things. The D Police will be posted on Monday, I promise, whether or not this has 10 thumbs up by then.
Yeah.
But once this one and the D Police, when they're both posted, when they both get 10 thumbs up, I will give you more. That way I know that you guys are enjoying these. If I am not doing something in these that you do not, that you want to see,
happily hear it.
just tell me what, and I will be more than happy to do it. I'm going to try and do a couple more guests with these. This is the first one of it, and it worked out very well. So I'm going to continue to try and do these. I will make sure to hit your favorite clan eventually. So if I haven't hit it yet, just be patient. I promise I will be covering all the clans, even the ones I don't like, and I will make sure to do all of them except Estranger. So thank you very much, Zane, for doing this with me. I really appreciate it, guys. There is no one I know that knows the Granblue clan better than Zane. He has been playing this clan since he started playing Vanguard. He's the only player I know to make it work. And I will...
I've been nicknamed the captain because...
Yeah, he is the captain, guys. So anyway, guys, we hope you we hope... yeah, we should have thought ahead, but... But anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed this. So in the comment section below, if you have any questions for Zane, just leave them down there. And when
Yeah,
he's
and
online, he will check them out, and he will be more than happy to answer them for you.
Absolutely, and if you need me to do another video about something, I will be happy to talk in length about something.
So anyway, guys, thank you very much for your patience and support, and we will be talking to you guys later.
See you later.